season of Beyond the Scoreboard here on Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP with Eric Thomas alongside. I'm James Dotson as we take a look back at not only the championships from Acrisure this past weekend, but we'll take a look at the entirety of the 2025 football season for our Lawrence County teams, and also take a look ahead at the upcoming semifinals and state championships coming up for the football season as well. But before we dive fully into it, I got to give a huge congratulations again to Laurel Spartans, unfortunately on the losing end of a 8-6 battle against Clairton. Congrats to Clairton, their 15th Wpial championship in football program history. They did just enough. They made a couple of bigger plays in the game that Laurel was unable to make. But Laurel, congratulations, a historic season, first time in the finals in 36 years. And I'll tell you what, it was similar to the Union game a few years ago, Eric, where getting to the press box, and I had people saying, if Laurel keeps us within 30 points, I think that they should be really pleased and happy with that. And they were right there to the very end with a chance to win. And hats off again to this Laurel program for what they accomplished this year.
Yeah, and really, James, I mean, they had a chance. You probably could look back and say they should have won it. This is going to be sort of the if we did this, we would have done that. And, I mean, chance to have a 1-point lead and win the game by a point, chance to be up and have Clairton play catch-up the whole time. They did what they needed to do to put themselves in position to win. The offensive numbers weren't great. I thought Colton Carlson was fantastic punting the football because that game really became about defense and field position in that game, and he was a huge factor in that. Clairton just made the one or two plays right before the half to separate themselves, and then we knew that and kind of like the MO that game was going to be, if Clairton got the lead, it was going to be, can Laurel play catch up? And they didn't necessarily have to play catch up. They just had to play a little bit better than what they did offensively and kind of figure that Clairton front out. And had they, again, made one or two more plays in that game, I mean, it was just that close. And I think we learned really quick, too, that there wasn't much distance between Clairton, Fort Cherry, and Laurel as the top three teams. I mean, it's pretty much, at least the way I saw it coming out of there on Saturday, it was 1A and 1B. I mean, there's no question in my mind that Laurel team, if you put them on the field 10 times total between Clairton and Fort Cherry, so 5 each, they're winning 4 or 5 of those games. I mean, that's how good I think that team was. And, I don't know that they're ever going to get really enough credit because obviously Clairton moves on and they're going to be a favorite to play for a state title here in a couple weeks. But I don't think the gap was all that wide between those three teams. They were clearly the 3 best teams in single A in the WPIL.
And frankly, I mean, you held a Clairton team that's averaging 49 points a game to a single touchdown. They had 1 touchdown drive at the end of the first half where they went down the field, and really, I mean, kudos to Clairton. They threw something a little different at them. They went to that little wishbone, which hadn't been seen much on film. Then they went to a 5-wide set, and it was 1 busted coverage on 1 play. And that's all it takes against a team, again, a team as talented as Clairton is. But busted coverage on 1 play leads to the only touchdown that Clairton scores. And, that ends up being it. The Laurel defense overall, I know they gave out 250 yards, but it was a similar scenario to Fort Cherry the week before, right? A little bend, don't break. You keep a team out of the end zone, especially a team that has, very little in the special teams department. You take advantage of a team's weakness, and I think Laurel did that minus 1 play.
Yeah, they really did, and their offense is probably going to kick themselves a little bit for the chances that they missed here and there, but overall they can't be upset about what happened in that game. I mean, they threw their best shot at Clairton. They went right down the field. They had an opportunity early in that game to get the lead, and pretty much I think at that point knew that they could hang with them, and that's what they needed to prove in that game. Could they hang with them? And they, without question, did that. A lot of BS chatter about, the refs favored this team and the refs favored that team. And I always find it amazing how a certain segment of fan never wants to give the other team credit. It's always that their team is being cheated. And, I don't know that it was the greatest officiated game, but, these guys are doing the best they can to keep things between the lines. I didn't think there was anything overly egregious. A lot of people were complaining about the pass interference penalty in the end zone in the second half. You go back and watch the game. I mean, there's offensive pass interference. There's nothing you can really complain
Mhm.
about. I thought it was a very physical game, a hard played game by both sides, and I truly believe. I think Clareton's going to be a little bit better for having gone through that. I would be a little worried about an emotional letdown this week if Laurel had won. I think that they would be a little bit more prone for an emotional letdown, but. Just given that it'd be 2 weeks in a row over Clareton over Fort Cherry, and then all of a sudden you gotta get up and play another game on a holiday weekend and all that. I think Clareton's going to be better for it. I don't think that's good news for the rest of the state. I really don't think that's good news for the single A bracket, but we'll see. I believe that they are the favorite to win now, and I believe that they had to earn every inch they got against Laurel. They had to really kind of scratch and claw to get it, and just a hard fought, physical, well played game by both sides.
Almost. That's the word right there. Just almost. Laurel had, as you mentioned, the chances. They had 9 possessions in the game. 5 of them started in Clareton territory. The couple of missed field goals obviously hurt. Tony Guywood's 3 of 4 during the year. Those were 2 long field goals. You got to remember too. This is a kid who was hurt last week at the end of the Fort Cherry game. He didn't practice until it was I think Wednesday before he was even back on the field. So the fact that he was even able to be out there kicking 30-yard, 40-yard field goals. What were they? 39 and 40, I think, officially were the ones. And then they had him attempt a 48-yarder that ended up not happening due to the penalty. But, he's out there. He's making plays. He got an interception on defense. The fact he even had a chance to attempt field goals in the game, I think, is telling to, that young sophomore's capabilities. We finished top 10 in the state in interceptions. Just pure athletes all over the field. That senior class, unfortunately, playing in their last game. But reports were afterwards that they were, I don't want to say over it, but there were smiles being shown by the time they were getting home. It wasn't just like we just let that go or anything like that mentality. It was we had a heck of a season. We had a chance. They have the right mindset, is what it sounds like, and that's really good to hear too.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they got nothing to be ashamed about. I mean, they played their tail off. They got to a game that nobody outside of maybe those of us that are around that team a good deal thought they would get to. They have nothing to hang their hat on. I mean, or hang their head on. Like they played hard. I mean, beat teams that nobody thought they would beat, and nobody gave them a chance to do that. They probably felt a little bit of a disrespect in that regard, and I can't say I blame them if they did. But it really just showed that this program, I think, is on the come up. It might be a little bit longer until they get a good run like that again, but I think it's a lot closer now than it would have been, had they just had like if last year's season was the end all be all for this team. I think that they're a lot closer now than what they were a year ago at this point. They would have traded everything in the world to win that game for sure. But I just think that that team has now set the bar for the program, but it's not going to be the same type of situation like where Laurel just reloads. They're going to have to build a little bit. There's a lot of pieces that are there for next year,
Mhm.
Assuming everybody stays healthy, no transfers, like anything like that. There's a lot of pieces there. They're going to be able to win games next year. They're going to be a playoff team next year. They're going to be in contention for the Big Seven next year. But I think it's going to be like 2-3 years down the line when some of those younger kids that we saw at the JV level, when they get to that level, that varsity level, and can start to contribute, then we're talking about this team having another one of those type of runs. But it is a heck of a lot closer now, and they got to feel really good about where this program is, the position this program is in right now, going into the offseason. They've got something to build on. I know they got to wave bye to a bunch of key contributors like Carlson and Miles and Santini and all these different guys. But man, there's still a lot of talent that's left there. There's still a lot of talent left on the offensive line coming back next year. There's still a ton of talent on this defense next year. Might not be as flashy as it was this year, but this team is going to be in good shape to win again next year too.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the line, because obviously you lose 3-year starters like Kevin Mahoney and Casey Wilson. Like those guys obviously meaning so much to the guys in the trenches and to what the running game has been able to be. But you got Don Willis working in there, Caden Narling, who missed late in the year, but he's a big time performer, and Alex Medved, who had 20 23 tackles for loss by the end of the year. So you got a good number of guys on that offensive and defensive line that are going to be anchors for this team for next year's squad.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, Medved made the biggest jump. I mean, he was not even on the radar last year of guys that were an impact player. And then all of a sudden this year he comes out and just plays his tail off. And he's going to get to run with Tyler Fuchs again next year, which is going to be a really lethal combo. And those two, a huge part of that offensive line too. And they've got some size coming up. They've got some pretty good skill players, at least it looks like. I know that Neshannock team was better in that JV game. I keep going back to the JV game. I can't, I never in my life have paid attention to that level of football, but getting to see that game and see where these programs are coming through and then what to expect now in a couple of years. I mean, we learned a lot in that game, and this program is in good hands. Brian Cooper now has a taste of what it takes to win. That staff has a taste of what it takes to win. They can't feel like they're satisfied and that the season, they definitely can't feel like the season was a failure, but they can't feel like they're satisfied. That's got to give them a hunger that they're going to go back, they're going to work harder and try to get that title here in a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because 2 years ago we were covering a game where we were talking. We were saying a big man on the line by the name of Tyler Fuchs. We were talking about a running back who was all over the field by the name of Tony Guyowitz. And now look what they have already done in their 2 years at the varsity level. Last year was Union winning a championship. Talking with the names like Monte Booker, and you're going to hear Frank Kechak as a name coming up for Union in the next couple of years as well. So those are the type of things I'm talking about of why we've enjoyed doing that. And I'm glad you got to experience it this past year. And we're going to talk about a lot of those Laurel and Neshannock guys coming up in the next couple of years as well. So, keep tabs on these junior high championships, guys. These Tri-County championships are we're not just doing them for the fun of it. We're looking towards the future of what's coming on in the area. And there's plenty of great talent that's going to be in there. But we got to honor this team. Eric, let's get it out of the way right now. Our November LCAP team of the month is the Laurel Spartans football program. One of the best seasons in program history. Again, first time to a Wpial championship since 1989, finishing with a 12-2 record. Your LCAP team of the month are the Laurel Spartans. Congratulations, Coach Cooper, Coach Miles, Coach Allman, everybody on that staff for everything that they've done over the course of, not just this year, but over the past couple of years, building it to this moment. The Laurel Spartans are your LCAP team of the month for the month of November. We do have one other award to give as well here on our podcast, your Red Zone Athlete of the Month. And typically the November Athlete of the Month, we don't have a female Athlete of the Month because most of the female sports have wrapped up by this time. So there will not be a female Athlete of the Month. We'll have later in the year, in the winter or in the spring, we'll have a multi-female Athlete of the Month winner, just like we've done the last 2 years. But for your male Athlete of the Month, somebody who has, I don't want to say flown under the radar. Well, he probably has across the Wpial, but certainly we've talked about him all year. He broke out in a big way on the offensive side of the football compared to what we were talking about all year on the defensive side. Big part of their success in all season, but all through the postseason especially. Jack Miles is your Red Zone Athlete of the Month. I mean, when you play 4 playoff games and you have over double the rushing yards in those 4 games and you had the entire regular season, more touchdowns in the playoffs than the entire regular season, that speaks for itself without talking about, the fumble recoveries and key moments and every, double-digit tackle game he had defensively. So Jack Miles, hopefully you're in agreement, says a quality Athlete of the Month for the month of November.
Yeah, I don't have any argument with that whatsoever. He was a huge part of that win over Fort Cherry, which was maybe the biggest in program history, and just played his tail off in the postseason. Very selfless player, very hard player to defend against, and just kind of scheme for. You don't know really what he's going to do to you as far as like running the football, but he kind of surprised us a little bit with his running ability. I think we knew that, he had the ability to do that. We just didn't see it the way that we did in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, he just an incredible defender and really was a big reason why this team, you could just see him like in games like the Fort Cherry game where he was like leaving it all out there. He was just completely spent after that game, and the toll that it kind of took on him. He's exhausting himself to win it for his program and his community, and just a amazing performance by him, and just hats off to what he was able to do for this team this year. He was a lot of fun to watch down the stretch. A lot of fun to watch over his career, but I mean, particularly the last couple of weeks, just what he was able to do for this team, especially on the offensive side, was something special.
So as we put a bow here on the 2025 football season for our county teams, obviously just talking a lot about Laurel. Talk a little bit real quick, Eric, about some of the other teams across the county, some of the players who we've seen lace it up for the final time, and maybe some of the guys that we're going to be, that really caught our eye this year that we're already looking forward to see on the gridiron next year.
Yeah, I kind of come back to that Shenango team a little bit, and I know that the talk is going to be about Newcastle, and we'll get to them in a second. But Shenango, I think, has a lot to build with too, and I think that they certainly have the quarterback. There's no question about that. They've now got to kind of fill in the depth, the offensive line, and kind of work on getting especially some depth, because that team, if that team had like 3, 4 more players that could contribute, that would have made a big deal for this team. And program seems like it's in good shape, and they're in the right direction. It's just got to fall together for them. And I know that they made the run towards the playoffs there at the towards the end of the year, and they got some breaks along the way to put themselves in a position for it. But some of those games, like the game against Northgate, was like pretty easy for them. But then you get against a team like Neshannock. Well, now you know what it feels like to have to win that game. So next year, you expect them to come back, and maybe they sneak one of those games and take advantage of a couple teams. And I know they had the big one over Mohawk, and what Mohawk becomes later on in the year is a huge thing. But I just think that team's in a really good spot right now, and their program's pointing in the right direction. And then, of course, Newcastle, I don't think you can go without saying what that program is doing right now. They're rolling behind Fred Mazzocco, and they're set up for, just a generational group of guys. And now, as they get more in there in the building to kind of embrace what the team this year did, and more guys understand what they're going to have to do to win, and Marino Graham gets better, and he's got some of his top targets that he's going to have for a couple of years still too. Like, the sky's the limit for that team. I mean, they're going to be a nightmare for the WPIL coming up here in the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, they have their top 5 rushers coming back next year. They have, obviously, you lose Lemon and Harrison. That'll be 2 tough ones to have to replace. But Kaya Cox coming back, again, Proctor, Stewart, Taylor, guys coming out of the backfield. Those are going to be big quality parts as well. If they can reshuffle a new offensive line, because a good number of the guys on the O-line are leaving the graduation, then, yeah, I'm right with you. I think Newcastle is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Neshannock, they graduate a good number of players, but they have a really talented sophomore going to be junior Nika Mador. He's going to be fun to watch for sure with the weapons he'll have around him. Excited to see what Coach Bonjovingo will do with that group. And Elwood City, I'm not betting against you, Coach Bradley. I did not see a 7-5 season coming whatsoever after graduating Chris Smiley and graduating Elijah Palmer McCain in that huge graduating class. Dom Hogue, Daylon Curie, those guys, they took over. I mean, they're the top 2 receivers now in program history, thanks to a record-setting passing year from Tyler Smiley. Yeah, and you got a good number of the rushers coming back on that team too. So Elwood City's going to be a fun program, I think, to keep your eye on next year. Even Union's going to be a fun program to watch next year. I know they didn't win any games this year, but how many freshmen and sophomores were a part of having to be a part of that team right from the get-go? So I think Union, a team that they had to get their young guys in there, obviously earlier than they wanted to. However, yeah, they have guys who are going to be very much already a year of experience under their belt. That's going to be big for them. And finally, I mean, can't go without talking about Bobby Fadden and Mohawk. Only the second player in WPIL history to have 1,000 yards passing, rushing, and receiving in a career. Obviously, unfortunate to see his football career come to an end. Joey Nail had a fantastic senior year as well, but hopefully to see both Lucas and Cash Stratton together in a backfield next year for Mohawk will be a lot of fun to see what they will be able to do in next year with Coach McCutcheon's offense.
I'll be really curious what he does with the quarterback spot, because he tinkered with that with Fadden and put him in a position where, he had to be the guy to replace the guy. And it turned out all right. I mean, he was definitely the best player on the field, for that team like numerous weeks, and really was the reason why they had a shot to do anything down the stretch. So, with all the injuries and everything there and trying to figure that out, Mohawk needs a little bit of depth too, though. They've got to come up with a couple of guys to help push them along. I think depth wise, and it's going to be tough for them because they're going to have to replace so many dudes like Fadden, Nail, like those guys. And boy, I'll tell you, their basketball team is going to have it rolling this year too. We'll obviously get more into that as the season goes on, but yeah, that program, I mean, they're never going to be out of it. Tim McCutcheon will always figure out a way to make things work. And what he did with Fadden, I think, speaks volumes to what he's capable of
Mhm.
doing when he has to replace key players like that. So he'll have to do it again next year, and he's already proven he can do it once. So why can't he do it again?
Real quick, Wilmington, they lose a good number of seniors as well, but you do return both quarterbacks. You do return your top rusher and Chase Mitchell-Tree for his senior year coming up. They'll have to shuffle some things on the O-line, but Wilmington's going to be Wilmington, and they're going to be fighting right there all the way to a championship in D10, right to the very end.
Yeah, very. I mean, I'm not saying anything that nobody disagrees with here. That was a disappointing end for them. I
Mm-hmm.
think they'll learn from that. I think you'll see a Mitchell Tree come back next year, highly motivated to make amends for that. And they're such a machine right now that they'll be able to fit guys into that program, and they'll be fine. They'll
Yeah,
figure out. They'll find somebody to carry the ball. They'll find somebody to do all the dirty work. They'll be okay.
Yeah, actually, crazy enough, I wasn't even paying attention. Yeah, you returned the top four rushers from this year on that Wilmington team between Mitchell Tree, Ketterings, and Rowan Miller. So, yeah, as long as, again, they get some, new pieces on the offensive line to take the place of some multiple-time all-region and all-district players, yeah, I'm not too worried about what Wilmington is going to be. Let's go back and take a look at these state tournaments. We'll go from 1 up to 6A, Eric. So let's start with 1A. Your semifinals coming up this week. Clairton against Greenville. District 7 against District 10. A surprising Greenville victory over Port Allegheny in the quarterfinals, including a goal line stand against one of the best running backs in the state, one of the best O-lines in the state there for the Gators. And on the other side, Bishop Guilfoyle wins a game much like Clairton did. A low score 7-6 against Westinghouse. They take on a Belmont charter team that put up 52 points. So you got two teams that scored 1 touchdown in the quarterfinal games, and they're going against teams that scored 5 or 6 or 7 touchdowns in their games.
Actually, I have this game Friday night, so I'm looking forward to it and get a chance to call a game in my home area, which will be first time I've done that since the state football finals last year. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Guilfoyle is very balanced, and they got a lot returning from last year's state title team. Just it's a little younger than what they're used to, and I know, having talked to him actually just a couple of hours ago when people listen to this, but Justin Wheeler, the head coach at Guilfoyle, he is for sure a little concerned about what this Belmont team's going to do. They're very big, they're very fast, they're not deep. They only have like 27 kids on the roster, but they are explosive. They can run the football. Their defense has lights out numbers. I mean, tons of tackles for loss. They got guys that are picking passes off right and left. They're a bit of an enigma because a lot of people don't know a whole lot about them. The program's only been around for 5 years, but they've been in the state playoffs every year that they've been in existence. So their program seems like it's chomping at the bit, and who better to go after than the state champs in the state semifinal. So we'll see what happens, but I still think Guilfoyle's got a little too much form. Now, the interesting thing about this game, and there was a little gamesmanship played by the Belmont charter team. They did not exchange any film with Guilfoyle, and it kind of drew the ire of the Guilfoyle coaches, and they were sort of scrambling like a lot of people have too for information on this team because there's not a lot out there about them. But they were able to piece a few things together, watch a bunch of games on YouTube where their stream is, and kind of figure some things out. But they took apart Lackawanna Trail last week. Big second half run on the football. This will be a fun game on Friday night. I give Guilfoyle a little bit of an edge just because they've got the state championship pedigree. Maybe Belmont doesn't quite understand what it's going to take to win a game like that yet. But I think this might end up being a really high scoring game too.
On the other side, real quick, the Greenville game, the fact that they defeated Port Allegheny is one thing. Now you got to go and take on Clairton here in the state semifinals. But hats off Rudy Gentili, over 200 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns in the game against Port Allegheny. Cale Thurber doing what he's doing. He didn't have to throw it as much against Port A, but again, extending plays when he needs to. It's a whole nother story going against the Clareton defense. How do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, I don't know. Because on one hand, part of me thinks that Clareton's going to come out and just absolutely lay the wood to him, and play like a lot of people thought they were going to play in the WPIL final. On the other hand, this Greenville team's got a little something cooking for them, and they may be able to sort of ward off that Clareton attack for a little bit. Clareton to me last week showed that they're not a perfect team, but they're definitely good enough to win. They seem, at least without running the football, like I was really surprised by how limited they seemed on offense. I expected a little bit more out of them on offense. I expected the running game that we saw, but I just thought like, man, that team, if you look at them as explosive as they are, and I think a lot of that's a byproduct of their conference, which I didn't think was that great this year, but they're more of a defense run team. They're not this explosive offense. I think they're more of a ground and pound team that has to defend you and play you, basically bring a lot of pressure. They know that you're going to get some things against them, but then they buckle down and they make sure you don't get a whole lot more. I don't know though. This Greenville team, house money. I get a little worried about that too. I'm going to go Clareton in that game just because I think that they have too much firepower defensively, but I don't know. There's something about that Greenville team. They seem like they're awfully blessed right now.
I got to give one final Laurel shout out here, not only to the the team, the coaches, the fans. I got to give a shout out to the marching band as well, real quick. Wanted to mention this earlier. The Newcastle Light Up Night Parade was on Saturday night after the game. So after the game, they're scrambling back. They go straight to downtown Newcastle to participate in the parade. Just the little things like that you forget about, the fact that they have obligations as part of the band to be in parades like that, but also are going and supporting the team. Their bus broke down on the way down to Acrisure. They had to go and basically get it repaired, fixed to get there in time for the game. Just a long, crazy day for the marching band. And now I got to give a shout out, though, to Macy Miller and Nora Johns, because they competed at their talent show yesterday before the holiday break here. Wouldn't you know, they go out and do their talent show wearing their MVP insurance, MVP of the game shirts they got from the Lawrence County Band Festival. So, Macy, Nora, we see you. Well done on that. But hats off to them and everybody involved again, from every booster member, every administrator, everybody. So crucial to a program's success when they go on long runs for all that. Those semifinal games, as you just talked about, though, in Class 1A are on Friday night, and all can be watched only on the NFHS network. Same for 2A, except not on Friday night. Well, one of them is, one of them isn't. Farrell and Seton LaSalle will be played on Saturday afternoon at Elwood City. By the way, the Greenville game against Clareton will also be played at Helling Stadium at Elwood City. So don't look at the tickets, folks. Tickets say Elwood City High School. It's not at the high school. That address is wrong. Look up Helling Stadium for the venue there for both of those District 7 versus District 10 semifinal games in 1A and 2A. Seton LaSalle had to come from behind against Steel Valley, Eric. They did it through the Wildcat. Man, Will Martin, what a strong finish he had in that game. All 3 touchdowns from the Wildcat. We know what he can do on defense. Farrell, all they had was Jules Johnson run for 4 touchdowns, catch a 50-yard touchdown pass as well. This is going to be a fun one here between the Rebels and the Steelers.
Yeah, defensive-oriented team in Seton LaSalle, too. Their defense has been great all year long. I don't want to say pieced it together offensively, but, we've talked a lot about what their offense could have been this year had everybody stayed, but they just couldn't get the Anthony Smith situation going, and then the guys transferring out of there. So we know what the offense was, all year long. But last week kind of concerned me a little bit if you're Seton LaSalle. I don't know that they have enough if this is a game where Farrell gets ahead, that's going to be tough for them to have to play catch up, I think, the whole time. Now, Seton LaSalle is going to have to play defense. They're going to have to run the football. They're going to have to limit the possessions by Farrell. best defense in this game is going to be their offense if it can stay on the field. I do trust their defense to come up with a couple of plays here and there. The problem is I trust Farrell's defense to come up with a few plays too. I'm going to say Seton LaSalle in this game by a point, and I give slight edge to them because I think their competition has prepared them a little bit better. I think them seeing a Steel Valley team that is physical, that likes to run the football last week, I think that got them a little bit more ready to get where they need to be in this situation. And they sort of feel like this team just has last year felt like they should have played for a state title. They think they should have been there last year and they couldn't get it done. And I believe that there's enough guys in that team that are playing with a chip on their shoulder that they'll find enough offense to crack Farrell.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about Laurel being a team that had those opportunities early, couldn't capitalize. Look at Steel Valley. They were stuffed on the doorstep, I think on the 1 yard line twice in the first half. It stayed scoreless at the halftime break. They still got up 14-0, and Seton LaSalle still was able to come back and get the victory in that one. So being able to weather the storm, I think, is a big part of it. And certainly the Rebels did that. On the Farrell side, I got to give a shout-out to quarterback Aaron Pegues. 4 games in the playoffs, he's thrown 5 incomplete passes. That's it. And he's now, I think, it's 135 consecutive passes without throwing an interception. He's definitely the number 2 option, though, behind Jules Johnson. He's heading to Nebraska. He's an incredible talent, approaching 3,000 yards total on the year. I think it's like 5,000 now career rushing yards there at Farrell. He's the real deal. Tymar Freeman is as well. Not sure about what health level he is. Those are 2 of the most dynamic running backs that you're going to see really throughout all the 24 remaining teams in the state of Pennsylvania. That's the battle I'm going to be most interested in, is which team can do the work on the ground more effectively against the other team's pretty stout run defense, especially if you get the fog. Like, did you see the fog that Farrell had to play through last week?
Incredible.
That was insane. That's probably why Pegues only had to throw 4 or 5 passes in the game. But both teams, they're going to have to mix it up. Whatever team has the better mix and the better flow without making those mistakes is going to be the victor in this one.
Yeah, and really to me, I just this one's a 50-50 game. I really do see like a really nip and tuck style game. Although, we got last year when we got to the semifinals, this is where Port Allegheny blasted Fort Cherry too. So weird things happen in this round too, and some things you don't expect will pop up. Maybe like an 8-7 game or 7-6 game like we saw with Guilfoyle last week with Westinghouse. But I sense that Seton LaSalle just has a little too much on its plate right now, and that they really want to get it done. They want to devour that and get it done this year. They feel like they left a lot on the table a season ago, and I like their defense, man. I just think their defense has been really good all season long. It was good enough, I should say, on Saturday. And then the way they sort of like switched up their offensive attack a little bit to give Steel Valley problems, being able to adapt in that late of the season and throw those kind of things at teams, I think that goes a long way to showing that you're ready for a title run.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly right there. The fact that you have the being able to adapt and change when things don't go your way, or just to be able to throw something different that maybe the opposition hasn't seen on film yet, goes a very, very long way. And here's another key point. Why was Laurel close in their game against Clairton? They forced Clairton to do something they don't do much and don't do well. Punt. 3 punt opportunities. 1 was blocked. 2, the punt didn't even get off. It was a turnover on downs. Farrell's only punted 14 times this year. Either they don't punt it at all and they're going to win easily, or they're going to have to punt and things might become potentially interesting. So very much special teams become such a huge factor in these late stage of the way games. Again, that is Saturday at 1:00. The reason for it, Eric, that we've been told, basically because this is Thanksgiving weekend, practically all of the potential venues basically said they didn't have site availability because they don't have personnel available because they are already contracted to be off for Thanksgiving, for the entire Thanksgiving week for some universities, but certainly over that weekend, they just don't have the personnel available. So Elwood City was a team that was in a school that was able to host. sounded like the PIAA didn't want to, or maybe Elwood City didn't want to try to do a doubleheader on Friday of a 1 o'clock and a 7 o'clock, playing Black Friday afternoon and evening. I think that would have been a nice way to go. But now you have a Saturday afternoon game. Technically, the east side of the bracket is going to have an extra day of rest. Is that anything to really be worried about?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's a Friday game. I know it'll be a little bit of a short week, but I don't think that doesn't matter now. You got one game left. I don't think that matters.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, in fact, the matter is you got all these games on Friday, and 1A and 4A are going to have to play on a short week on Thursday next week out at Cumberland Valley anyway. So, real quick, Son of Columbia, Landale's Catholic. What's the word on that? Except for, hey, shocker, Son of Columbia's there again.
Yeah, they're running the ball really well right now. They're back to what they were doing a couple years ago, and we said it I think last week that sometimes the teams that are the least with the least notoriety are the ones that Jim Roth coaches the best. So I just see them being able to run the football and do what they want, and they're focused. Again, they're another team that feels like they left a lot on the table last year. That Troy team was so good and just generational in its own right. And that was a unit that had come through 4, 5, 6 years of playing together, and all the way up through high school. So that was gonna be a tough team for them to overcome anyway. And Southern was you just tell last year watching they were a little bit too young in some spots, but offensive line's good. They demolished Steel High. That was a little bit of a surprise. Steel High was a really good team this year. Scored the ball very well. Their defense might be a little shaky, and they didn't have a lot of depth in that team this year, but this Southern team is running the ball really well, and I see no reason why they can't run through Lansdale Catholic and get back to Cumberland Valley, play for another title.
Yeah, I'm seeing Southern Columbia, and I'll give the 51-49% edge to the Farrell Steelers there. Seton LaSalle having to go to play from where the Steelers play to against the Steelers themselves. Call that my prediction, I guess, for the finals. And then the 2A finals will be on Friday afternoon next week at Cumberland Valley. Class 3A, this was the one game really of the 4 that were played at Acrisure Stadium in the Wpial championships on Saturday. That was no contest from the beginning. Avonworth in a battle of unbeatens dismantles, destroys Imani Christian. A couple of defensive touchdowns in that game. Penn Cambria also with a very unique defensive touchdown in their win against Sharon, a 12-7 victory there for Penn Cambria. They had an interception return. Wasn't for a touchdown. They fumbled it, and then another guy scooped and scored it for the pick, scoop and score 6, something like that, I guess we can call it, for Penn Cambria. Wanted to mention defense and special teams. Well, there's the defense for Penn Cambria. Special teams, too. Their punter averaged over 50 yards per punt in that game that forced long fields for Sharon. Special teams is so crucial here in the playoffs. It doesn't get a lot of notoriety. But Avonworth against Penn Cambria is going to be a fun one on the western side of the bracket. Trinity and Northwest Lehigh on the eastern side.
Yeah, this Trinity team has kind of been living dangerously. I mean, they won on a 2-point conversion last week against Newman Goretti and then had to hold them off. And they're, balanced offense, and this is the first time they've been in the state semis, I believe, so in school history. But this Northwestern Lehigh team is primed to get back to CV, and they're going to defend their title. So that's good luck to Trinity in that game. But I think you pencil in a rematch of last year. I've been saying that for weeks now. Mm-hmm. Avonworth looks too good. They look phenomenal against Amani the other day, and this Northwestern Lehigh team might be better than last year's, honestly. Like they just keep mowing people down, and they are just on a different level. And I think we're getting Saturday afternoon. That's going to be Saturday has potential in the state finals. If we get either LaSalle and Central Catholic in 6A or Harrisburg and LaSalle in 6A, and if we get the rematch with Avonworth and Northwestern Lehigh, that has potential to be maybe the best day since we've gone to 6 classes in state championship history. I think those 2 games could be phenomenal. And that 3A game is one that I'm circling. Mm-hmm. It's the one I want to see the most. And, if we get it, if we're lucky enough to get it, it's going to be worth the price of admission.
You mentioned rematches. That is a Penn Cambria Avonworth semifinal rematch from a year ago as well. Keep that in mind as a potential. But what I guess, let me ask you this, Eric. With that game in mind as a rematch, and on the other side, a team that is looking to repeat versus a team that's never been there before, you kind of mentioned the nothing to lose mentality, and there's no pressure on Trinity because you're already in uncharted waters type thing. How does that go into the mindset of both teams in that equation, being the team expected to move on versus the team that, hey, we're already playing with house money?
Yeah, if Trinity had been there before with this group, I would give them a better shot. When you get to this point and you know exactly what it takes to get through and win a game. Let's look back at a couple of teams over the last few years. So you take in, especially in 4A, you take Aliquippa, who gets there a couple of years ago, 22 or whatever it was. They beat Bishop McDevitt in a great game. Everybody thinks the rematch is going to happen the next year, and McDevitt comes back with a better team and basically cooks Aliquippa. Well, then we think we're going to get it for a third year, and we don't. And Dallas beats McDevitt, and then Aliquippa just goes in there, and I mean, nobody would have stopped them that night. On the I don't even think McDevitt would have beat him if they would have played him. But then McDevitt comes back the next year, and they realized, hey, we left another title on the table. We could be going for 3 in a row here, and they just come back and annihilate everybody in their way, and then beat a really good Roman Catholic team. You have to know how to win the game when you're in this situation. And, I know I've said a couple times here about some of these teams that, have a shot and things like that. And 2A, maybe not, but think about some of these classifications. So there's no Port Allegheny in single A. So you have a Clarendon team who, they've said all season long that they have to win a title. Well, they've already got one. Now they're going to try to play for another one. You have a Guilfoyle team who doesn't want to give a title up, so they know how to win. You have an upstart team in Belmont Charter, similar to what we're talking about here in 4A with Trinity and Northwestern Lehigh, or with Trinity and Northwestern Lehigh in 3. But having knowing what it takes to get to that point and knowing what it takes to win matters so much at this level. 2A, you have a Southern Columbia team. They feel like they should have been there last year again. They weren't. Now they're back. Now they're coming back to win the game. A lot of guys that went through that loss last year. 3A, Avonworth, focused all year, ready to go, ready to get back to a state title, ready to go try to win it this year against maybe the team that beat them last year that knows how to win and knows how to get there. 4 is going to be a little bit up in the air this year, but 5A, McDevitt doesn't want to give it up, comes back. Here comes Peters Township. They were just Nolan DeLucia's already played for a state title. Like, he played against Imhotep a couple years ago. He knows what it takes to get to that game. He knows what it's like to lose that game. And then 6A, nobody's had a shot to win that damn thing because of St. Joe's Prep. But Central Catholic was in it a year ago and feels like if they played anybody else, they probably would have won the game. Well, now they got a chance to play other teams, and now they got a chance maybe to beat the team that got a hold of them in week 1. And I just think knowing what it's like to have to go through that and getting back to the same point a year later with much of the same crew, you have to think that those teams that have been there and done that are the favorite. I think that means a lot. And I think it means even more when you have 6 classes. I think if you had 4 and it was a little bit more balanced across the board, maybe it wouldn't be that way. But I think in 6 classes, with the way everything is so spread out, that if you know what you're doing and you know what it takes to get there, and you've gone through a loss or you've gone through a win, that means more than anything else.
I'm going to enjoy the running back battles, by the way. Veloceris for Avonworth versus Vinglish of Penn Cambria. A couple of you're saying the V all night. Veloceris and Vinglish are going to be fun, and a couple of great receivers too in that game. I want to give a quick mention to, because Blake Lilly, how about 60 catches on the year for Penn Cambria? You don't hear many kids getting 60 catches in a season. Avonworth, though, has 2 guys that have, I think, more evenly spread the wealth. Luke and Neal both running it and receiving, and Jaden Jones for Carson Bellinger. I do think Avonworth has the advantage, and obviously, Northwest Lehigh expect to get them back. I think we do get a repeat of last year's championship. Again, those are on Friday night, and the championship scheduled for the following Saturday. The first game at 1 o'clock there next Saturday night. Class 4A, we've got a couple of good games here, too, coming up in the semifinals. Aliquippa took care of Oil City on the western side. Twin Valley, a higher scoring game. They get the District 3 championship, 41-21 over Susquehanna Township. That's going to be a high-scoring affair, I fear, between Aliquippa and Twin Valley. On the other side, Southern Lehigh and Cardinal O'Hara each putting up big numbers. Close game for Southern Lehigh in their championship, or in defeating District 4 champion Shamokin. All four of these teams have shown in the postseason that they can put up points, but they can also give up some points here too, Eric. I think you might be seeing the scoreboards lit up quite nicely on Friday night for these semifinals.
And we kind of keep waiting to see if Aliquippa is going to come back to earth after this run that they've been on with Marcus Council back. But I feel like that they're so primed now. The one thing that I will say about Twin Valley, if they can run the ball and they can get downhill running the ball, you got a lot of problems because that team will pound you if they can. Last week, Susquehanna Township I think was up 21-7 or 21-14 at one point, and then Twin Valley just took that game over. And Susquehanna Township never had a shot to get back in it whatsoever. They're a physical team. That's going to be physicality on physicality. Is the difference in this game again Marcus Council? I don't know. And the thing about him, like I really want to know, and I don't think we're ever going to get the answer. I really want to know how healthy he is, because you go back to that WPIAL final against McKeesport. The touchdown he throws, they're already up in the game. Now I understand that it put the game away, and he kind of had to extend the pocket a little bit and make the throw, but they're already up. So that's a gutsy play to hold on and win that game. Obviously, he beats Trinity with the touchdown pass. He didn't play the whole game. He comes in at the end of the game, and he throws the touchdown pass to win. Didn't do anything against Newcastle, but he didn't have to because they just pounded the football and they played great defense against them. So they didn't really call on him to do that. If Twin Valley can put the game, like force him to have to do more in this game, how close to 100% is he? Can he, if he has to throw the ball 15, 20 times in this game to give Aliquippa a shot, can he do that? Can he take some shots? If they bring any pressure, can he extend? That's one thing that these teams haven't really been able to do. Even when he was pressured against McKeesport and that play where he threw the touchdown pass at the end of the game, it's not like he had to run for his life. I mean, he took a shot, or he was close to taking a shot there at the end of the throw, but he extended the play, but didn't really have to scramble and throw on the run. So can they get pressure? Can they disrupt his comfort level? And can they get Aliquippa's offense off the field if they're going to run the football? This is going to be a great game between these two teams. It might be the semifinal of the night, honestly, between two physical, just want to pound you football teams. And this Aliquippa team is much, much more blue collar than I think we've seen in the past. They're not super flashy. They make flashy plays, but they're not a super flashy team like they were. And I kind of think that suits them a little bit better. I think I like this sort of, power run. They mix and match their running backs so well. They play great defense. I kind of like this version of Aliquippa a little bit more.
It feels like the Mike Shumanic days again all of a sudden. And you know what? If it's working, it's working. They don't care how it works. I mean, Khalil Good at 100-yard pick six, a big part of why that defense has been so good. I'm glad that you mentioned, mixing in the running backs, because between the two guys, I mean, J.J. Work and Kiva Woods especially, those two have done a great job to be able to take the load off of one another as necessary. Twin Valley on the other side, too, they got a pair of running backs, both over 1,000 yards. I mean, it starts with, Drew Engel, who had 31 carries. He's the workhorse, 281 yards, 3 touchdowns last week. But you also have Lucas Myers, who also averages 10 yards a carry. He's also over 1,000 yards. I don't think they've seen a defense like Aliquippa's, though, and that's going to be, again, when two teams work so well in the trenches with what they want to do already, that it's a completely different nightmare when all of a sudden you're going against somebody that is working and playing and practicing against that same caliber and same quality running attack each and every day in practice as well.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point to make. And the way Twin Valley runs the ball is a little bit different than Aliquippa's. Aliquippa just will tap into 3 different guys that can all do different things. But I think this has potential to be I don't know that it's going to be 8-6 like we saw on Saturday. This is maybe 13-10, 14-10, something like that. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, and I think that it's going to be just a hard physical contest. Now, the one thing I'll say about this game that I'm not a huge fan of, what they're doing with Mansion, and it goes back to what you said about the schools not being available Friday night. it's under my, from what I understand, a lot of people were questioning why this game was at Mifflin County. Well, number one, State College couldn't host it. Number two, I mean, State College would have been a perfect spot for this because there's no Penn State home game this weekend, but they don't have anybody available to host it. It was my understanding that Mansion Park is not available on Friday night either, and that's why they have a doubleheader on Saturday, again because of the holiday situation. So they're actually taking Aliquippa further, actually more east to go play this game, and Twin Valley only has like a hour and 47-minute ride, where Aliquippa's got almost 3 hours to get there. So that's but if there's a team that's going to make that trip and not care, it's Aliquippa. They're not going to care. They just want to get off the bus and go play. That's as simple as that. They won't be distracted by that. Mike Wardfield will not let that happen.
Yeah, I was thinking like Bald Eagle as a possibility when I was doing some bracketology for that. But hey, there's only so many sites that are available, and interesting.
And Mifflin County, by the way, James, Mifflin County has a gorgeous new facility. Like, they just dumped a ton of money into their facility. Mitchell Field used to be the old place, and it was a grass field. It was sort of like intimate there, but it needed updated badly. It was still grass. The turf was still like that gravelly, track was still that like gravelly track that goes around the fields, and the press box was not like you wouldn't store a lawnmower in that press box. Like, it was that bad. And they needed some investment, and they needed some opportunity to build a stadium. And I think they kind of want to show that off too. I think that's part of the reason why it's like, yeah, we'll make this available. If you're going to put a game here, we'll make this available because we want everybody to see it.
District 11 and District 12 on the east side of the bracket, Eric. What's the lowdown on Southern Lehigh against Cardinal O'Hara?
Yeah, this Cardinal O'Hara team's been good all year long, and people have kind of kept an eye on them. The Lehighs this year, man, Northwestern and Southern Lehigh, it's been pretty good in the Lehigh Valley this season. But yeah, Cardinal O'Hara, I think they coming out of that Philly Catholic League that's a big bonus for them. Now, they don't play in the same division as like the Romans and the St. Joe's Preps and the LaSalle's. They're in the other division, I believe. But I think that schedule kind of matters at that point, and the way that they've played this year, their offense can be explosive. They will either balance you out or they will grind you out. They went through kind of a little bit of a rough patch during the season, but they've been able to keep things together, at least on the field. And I don't know. I think that this is Cardinal O'Hara is sort of like this breakthrough team. We sort of figured that Bonner was going to maybe get back to 4A and make a run again, but I don't, I just don't think that was in the cards this year. That Bonner team, they actually are up in the higher division against the Romans and the St. Joe's Preps, and they finished above 500. But Cardinal O'Hara, I mean, let's see what they do here. I mean, they are in the red division, by the way. I misspoke there, but 10-4, and they trouble stopping teams a couple times this year. 233 points or 250 points, something like that they've allowed on the season. So I don't know how good their defense is going to be. If it gets into a shootout, they might have trouble stopping teams, but for the most part, I think their offense has been pretty good. They've been putting points up against some of the teams, and against some of the better teams. I mean, they were demolished by LaSalle. They did not fare very well against a marginally bad St. Joe's Prep team, but then they've turned it on in the playoffs. They've been able to have a couple of 3 straight games in which they didn't allow more than 6 points, so their defense kind of buckled down on it. And they do have a 2,000-yard rusher. Amaj Gowans is over 2,000 yards rushing this season. He's been the bell cow for them. And when they want to throw the ball, John Weldy's been pretty good too. So they got a good mix there. And if their defense can keep playing like it's been in the playoffs, then I think that they're probably the favorite in this game.
Those are both Friday night games as well, with championships. The night game on Thursday next week at at Cumberland Valley. Class 5A, how about the come-from-behind victory for Peters Township to defeat Pine Richland? Pine Richland, they did a couple of things going for too early that I think cost them. They chased some points, and Peters Township was able to get the 3 late touchdowns and be able to take the lead and really get the win as a result of that. They'll now take on District 3 champion Bishop McDevitt. On the other side, District 1 champion was crowned this week in Springfield Delco. and Roman Catholic getting their second straight win in convincing fashion. Another high-scoring affair for Roman there. But you got 4 programs here that certainly know how to put points on the board. We're going to have a fun one between Peters and McDevitt.
Yeah, not the game I think a lot of people expected. I think everybody
No.
expected Pine Richland and McDevitt to be back there. But this Peters team, how about how resilient they were? And I mean, Nolan DeLucia wanting to go out the way, he wants to go out on top. And that's sometimes you can't deny these kids when they want to get out and go win these crowns to close out their season. So I don't know. We'll see if they have enough in the tank against the McDevitt team that's gotten a lot better as the season's gone on. Their offensive line's intact. They're healthy now. They've got a 3-headed monster at running back. Sebastian Williams has played better at the quarterback spot. Jeff Wechter just picked up his 300th win last week as the head coach of McDevitt. And all time, he coached a little bit in Lebanon County before he came up to McDevitt years and years ago. But this McDevitt team seems like they've hit it at the right time. And last year it was sort of like, man, can they just get there? Can they hang on? They were kind of like the Rory McIlroy of PIAA football. It's like, are they going to find, are they going to do this? Like, is Stone Saunders going to get this title? Like, are they going to be able to hang on and win this thing? And this year, it's a complete opposite. They struggled early in the year, and then now all of a sudden they've gotten better, and they're playing their best football at the right time. So I would look out. Now, where Peters has an advantage in this game, to me anyway, is the 5A and WPIL was the best class anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania, I think, all year long. And I would have said maybe it was the Catholic League in Philly in 6A and 5A, that mix there. Bonner and St. Joe's Prep and LaSalle and Roman and Cardinal O'Hare all in the same division. That's pretty good as well. But from a pure class, 5A and the WPIL, nothing was better this year. I mean, you had Upper St. Clair, you had Moon, you had Peters, and you had Pine Richland, and all 4 of them could have won this title. It wasn't like a clear-cut favorite. Pine Richland, the most talent. It didn't show up when it needed to at the end of the game last week. But the guy who has sort of become like the godfather of 5A and sort of led this 5A revolution in Nolan DeLucia, he gets back there and he wins this game. Him not being denied last week was something special. He I think is doing it. He's going to lay it all on the line in this game. I'm going to pick McDevitt though. I think that they are playing at the right level right now. And I think that Peters might have exhausted a little too much late in that game last week. And this McDevitt team, the way they can run the ball and they don't ask their quarterback to do a ton, but he can now, which is a big difference from a couple of weeks ago, a couple months ago. The fact that he can move and extend the pocket is a big difference between last year's too, because Stone Saunders could not run the ball if he needed to, and Sebastian Williams can. That's a big difference in this game. He can keep a play alive. Eastern side, Roman. I mean, Samaj Beals is fantastic. 40 touchdowns, almost 3,000 yards rushing. They spread the ball out, running the football. They've been tested all year long. They did not. They still couldn't beat St. Joe's Prep, which I find kind of mind-numbing. But they lost a 1-point game to St. Joe's Prep, and they lost a 3-point game to LaSalle. Now, you do that, it tells me that your offense and your team is right in line with where they need to be. They came back. They just destroyed Father Judge in the 5A final, and then their offense has just kicked into a high gear in the postseason. I mean, they allowed 21 to Father Judge and 20 last week to Hollidaysburg, and then 7 in the other 2 games. So this defense is really locked in right now, and I think we get a rematch in 5A from last year too, Roman and McDevitt.
I find it so interesting. I mean, you mentioned the 3-headed monster in terms of the running backs for McDevitt. I mean, when you have 3 guys who average almost the exact same between 6 and 7 yards per carry, is one thing. But both Peters and McDevitt, the balance in their receiving core is incredible. The top 4 receivers for McDevitt, 26 catches, 25, 23, and 23 on the season. You look then at Peters Township. They go 31, 26, 23, 20, 19, and 16. So they got 6 guys who have all been very, very similar in terms of the receiving of the football. Being both Nolan DeLucia and Sebastian on the other side there for McDevitt are so good at being able to spread the wealth because they have multiple options to go to. It's not a one-trick pony in the passing game. That's, I think, what's made both these teams, again, under the radar. Why they are so good is because you can't just cover 1 or 2 guys. They're going to find the open receiver, and they have plenty of guys who can get open.
And not only that, but I mean, McDevitt's had to completely reinvent the receiving core. Like they lost guys like Tyshawn Russell, who went to South Carolina. They lost Rico Scott, who went to Alabama. They've lost, Sincere Bowers was a good running back out of the backfield catching the ball. He's at West Virginia now. Actually, it's probably going to be the number one running back at West Virginia if Jaheim White transfers out of there. So, they have just lost a ton of talent over the years. And oh, by the way, the best quarterback statistically in the state of Pennsylvania from a season ago. But to Sebastian Williams' credit, and I talk to a lot of McDevitt people on a regular basis, but probably more than I probably should living out in Pittsburgh. But the MO on him this year was he can extend the pocket, and he was busy early working with these receivers, trying to fit into the mold and get these guys on the same page. They knew they were going to be more of a running team this season than what they were in the past. They leaned on it a lot last year towards the end of the year, but Saunders still got his numbers and his records and all that. But they knew they were going to be more of a running team this year, and I think it's kind of flipped in the playoffs a little bit. I think as good as they've been running the ball, Sebastian Williams, they can rely on him a little bit more to do things, and he's found a comfort level with this receiving core, which is good. And on the other side, Nolan DeLucia, I mean, he just makes everybody around him better. Like he's good enough to do that. Another guy who suffered a setback when they lost to Imhotep in the state finals a couple of years ago. He wants to win that thing. He wants to prove that his team's the best in 5A. And I mean, how do you tell him no? It's going to be tough to tell him no if somebody has to.
Both of these are 1 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday after Thanksgiving, and the championship game, the night game at Chapman Field on Friday, December the 5th. Finally, real quick, Class 6A, the juggernaut still going. LaSalle College, Central Catholic. A lot of us thought, especially once we saw the St. Joe's dynasty, at least for one season, coming to the end. I think we've kind of been expecting this collision course back again for the end of the year, just like we started it. A great way to bookend the season. Harrisburg and North Penn are standing in the way, though, Eric. I think Harrisburg may be the better chance to dethrone the Central Catholic team we expect to get there. North Penn is still very much possible that they could do the same thing against LaSalle College, though. I don't know. I'd be very shocked if we don't see the Central LaSalle championship come again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if Harrisburg's able to knock off Central Catholic. Their defense is really good. Messiah Mickens is fully healthy. He's been able to be a major factor. Just committed to James Franklin and Virginia Tech actually on Tuesday this week. So he was a Penn State commit and then pulled his recruitment back when Penn State fired Franklin, but now he's following him to Virginia Tech. Might be Matt Sig following James Franklin to Virginia Tech too. Who knows? But this Harrisburg defense, I mean, if there's a weak spot on this team, their quarterback play is not the greatest, but they've got really good skills. Elias Koch is going to Rutgers. He's a great receiver. He can flat out fly, and you can throw the deep ball to him. They can move him around on defense when they play him there. Mickens good. Their offensive line's big. They can run the football. I wouldn't be stunned if they beat Central Catholic. I think Central Catholic's offensive line is going to take over this game. And again, back to the same theory I've been saying. The team that lost the season ago, even though it was against St. Joe's Prep, I think this Central Catholic team knows that this is their best shot to get these guys a crown, and they're going to throw it all out there. Last year it was a 4-point game or a 5-point game, I think, in this round, or 3, something like that. And I think it's going to be pretty similar again too. And I don't know. I'm gonna, boy, as much as I want to see Central Catholic and LaSalle in that final, you know what? I'm just going to pick it. I've been saying it all year. It's going to bookend the season. We're going to get that rematch in the 6A title game. The one thing that will stand in LaSalle's way on the eastern side is, remember who coaches North Penn, and that's Dick Beck. Dick Beck played football for Mike Pettin at Central Bucks West, was an offensive lineman there. He's played for a state title before. He lost to my alma mater for the state title in 11. He gets the most out of his players. He will not be intimidated by this LaSalle thing, and he will have his team ready to go physically and mentally for that game on Saturday. And they will throw everything and the kitchen sink and your kitchen sink and my kitchen sink at LaSalle. They might be a little bit undermanned, and that's sort of typical for North Penn. They're more of a blue collar team, you don't see, you get guys that go like different places for college, but like you don't have like the 5-star guys on like on three and things like that. But he'll have him ready to go. He's going to try to blue collar LaSalle out of the way in that game.
Central Catholic, a couple of great running backs, and Jaden Alexander and Roman Thompson. They're going to be the two main stalwarts to go against that really, really talented group. Again, with Dent running the football, and you talked about how electric Elias Koch is. How about 75 catches on the season? And well, when you can throw it up to him, I mean, Michael Shank Jr. again, not the greatest touchdown interception ratio for Harrisburg, but when you can just throw it up to Mr. Koch there. Doesn't matter if it's a Coke or a Pepsi, he's going to take it probably to the house more often than not. Those games, again, a night game on Saturday for the Harrisburg Central Catholic game, and the eastern side of the bracket, that is a 1 o'clock game at Central Bucks South between LaSalle and North Penn Championship. The final one at Chapman Field at 7 o'clock next Saturday night. Well, there it is, the semifinals preview for the state championships, and Eric and we're going to be out there for the championships a week from tonight. Well, a week from tomorrow night, I should say, for the first set of the games. Again, 2 on Thursday, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday. Talk it up a little bit, Eric, about the fun we're going to be having coming up.
Yeah, there's going to be some official word coming out here shortly, but we have put together an audio network for the PIAA final, so we're going to have all the 6 games streaming. I'll leave the particulars up to the PIAA to put out when they want to, but we will have all 6 games streaming. A couple places around the state, a couple radio stations are going to pick up some of the games, not all 6, but some of them are going to pick up a handful of them and distribute them all across the state. So we're looking forward to that. And this is a good project that I've been working on for a long time. Big shout out to the guys in Ohio that do their radio network, because they were a major influence on me and were willing to talk to me in right after our state finals last year in December. Actually, I sat down with them like probably 3 days after the finals were over and and talked to them. So they really kind of gave me the blueprint, and it's not exactly to a T what they are doing, but it's something I've been wanting to put together for a long time. And, thankful that we have people like Bob Lombardi, who I know is going to be retiring here at the end of the year, but he has been an integral role in that. And he has helped us out tremendously. And we finally got across the finish line, and we'll give you the finished product coming up at the state finals in a week.
Looking forward to it. We'll get all those links sent out on our website as well, and on our social media pages as that, official announcement comes here in hopefully the next couple of days. We're just a week away now from the championships for the football season. We will have another, we'll have a brief, I'm not going to call it a full podcast episode, but just a quick, 10-minute preview for the upcoming Lawrence County basketball season. We'll get you some information about the tip-off tournaments going on this weekend. Yes, tip-off tournaments begin here a couple days after Thanksgiving on Friday and Saturday. Typically a second set of tip-off tournaments the following weekend, the same weekend as the state tournaments. And guess what? Section games in basketball begin that following week. As crazy as it sounds, we are right here now into the thick of the winter sports season. I know a lot of scrimmages going on either yesterday, I think some going on here this morning or this early afternoon as well. So big shout out to all the young men and women who are getting out there, getting ready for the hoops season. We'll be out there for all the coverage. Again, we'll have the little short preview of this weekend, and then we'll, once the state championships are over and done with, we'll have our full preview show podcast coming up for the hoop season coming up probably 2 weeks from today, we'll say. So stay tuned for that on Beyond the Scoreboard. Eric Thomas, remind me again, where are you going to be for this Friday night?
Yeah, I have Bishop Guilfoyle and Belmont Charter for the NFHS Network, so you can watch it there from Mechanicsburg High School. Ben Shad, young up-and-coming broadcaster who does the Mechanicsburg High School games, is going to work with me on that one, so I'm looking forward to getting some young blood in the booth with me, and we'll see how that game goes, but that should be a fun one, and it'll be nice to be back in the 717 to do a game again.
And remind you that there are 2 state semifinal games this weekend being played in Lawrence County at Helling Stadium. On Friday night, the 1A game between Greenville and Clairton, and on Saturday night, the 2A game between Farrell and St. LaSalle. For Eric Thomas, I'm James Dodson. We'll catch you soon, whether it's on the gridiron for semifinals weekend or on the hardwood soon enough for the beginning of the tip-offs for basketball season. This is Beyond the Scoreboard. Thanks for joining.